Welcome to Lattes Art, sponsored by J Squared Atelier. Today's episode comes from a conversation that's been years in the making. A conversation that started when I, as a white male artist, worried I had crossed a line by using an iconic image of a 1970s Diana Ross photograph. I was working on an artwork for an event that Aneka Brown was hosting. But it was Aneka, the designer, artist, and visionary behind Aneka Brown Designs, who helped me see things differently. She showed me that while the image wasn't from my culture or lived experience, I was approaching it with appreciation, not appropriation. That moment reshaped how I think about representation, respect, and creative intent when it comes to things cultural that aren't from my own background. In this episode, Aneka and I revisit that conversation and take it even deeper. We talk about what cultural appropriation really looks like, when the line into appropriation gets crossed, and how artists of all backgrounds can celebrate cultures without exploiting them. Get ready for a thoughtful, honest, and sometimes uncomfortable conversation. Aneka, thank you so much for joining me today on the episode. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Just so everybody gets kind of a proper introduction of who you are and what it is that you do, can you tell us a little bit about you as an artist and designer and about Aneka Brown Designs?
Well, I am a clothing and accessory designer. I've owned an art gallery before that featured only cultural or LGBTQIA art. And I like to say that with my clothes, I like to fuse my heritage, which is African American, with my culture, which is African, because we descend from Africa. So I like to bring those aspects together to bring my love of being African American and African to the forefront.
What were some of the pivotal moments that you've had being a Black woman, being someone who has built your own business, and you're bringing your culture to the table through these amazing designs that you're creating?
Well, the first pivotal moment I had is when I was lucky enough to meet the iconic Trina Parks. I have, as a child, I wouldn't say worshipped or idolized, but I have appreciated her because she was the first African-American Bond girl in Diamonds Are Forever. So she moved out here and she was part of the Palm Springs Follies. At the time, I hadn't started designing yet. I had the gallery, so we were friends. And then when I started designing, I started posting my pieces on Facebook, and she's like, oh, I love that, I love that, I love that. So landing her as a client and then subsequently bringing her back, I would host Black History events, and she wasn't a guest, she was the hostess. I would put her out front. And getting her as a client and seeing her in my pieces and seeing her in red carpets in my pieces just blew me away. And then the next client I got was the iconic Sherry Belafonte, who was, of course, Harry Belafonte's daughter. She wore me to SAG Awards. I was subsequently in People magazine for that outfit, so that was my first major write-up. I've gotten more Getty images with her than I have with anybody. Those were two very, very pivotal moments in my career that I just said, I could do this and I could make this happen, and I was enjoying what I was doing. I had already locked down a lot of the local celebrities here, Keisha D. Robert Moon were my things. At the time, he was the mayor of Palm Springs. You and your lovely husband. And just all the local celebrities. Bella DeBall had a few of my pieces. So I was always kind of like this local fixture. And I don't want to say like legend or whatever or...
You were known.
I was, exactly. That's a good way of saying it. And so
it's that standing out in a social setting. We don't miss you when we show up to a party.
I work in vibrant colors, but then I also mix the African part into it and the African American part into it to make these fabrics and make these prints that are just phenomenal, and they set themselves apart from what other people are doing.
I apologize if I sound ignorant with this question, but are those like tribal prints that you're working with?
Yes, and what I do so that it does not cross the line, I do not design in sacred prints. Okay. I design in prints that everybody can wear so that they don't have to worry about crossing into that cultural appropriation line.
Well, I love how you say everyone can wear, because as you mentioned early, you had a gallery here in Palm Springs that you would host some amazing shows. You had Charles Bibbs here several times.
And Charles Bibbs is and has been for the last 30 years, the leading African-American artist, along with Cynthia St. James in the United States. What made me start that gallery was because I have an interior design background. And so whenever I was going to put art into a house, I would go to like Coda Gallery and Michael H. Lord at the time, gallery gone. And I struck up a friendship with the manager at the Michael H. Lord Gallery. And so I said to him, why don't you carry Charles Bibbs? And so what he said to me, and I took it to heart, was that if Charles Bibbs were an African artist that descended from Africa, he would carry him. But because he was not from Africa and because he was from America and he was an artist, it's looked upon differently. Whereas if you're from Africa or if you're from Haiti or if you're from any of these countries where Black people live and you're coming from there, it's looked at as exotic art. But somehow if it's an African American artist, it's not acceptable or it's not as well received.
So we really haven't lost that sort of Western European white man thinking of how to look at Black art.
Exactly. And I don't remember who said this, but it's one of my favorite quotes. When you go into art, you look at it with a veil of ignorance as to the subject matter. And if you love it, hang it up in your home. So you would see, like, say, for instance, if you go to an African-American person's house, if you see a white artist, it's not a big deal. But then if you go to a white person's house and you see a Charles Bibbs up, for some reason, it was just shocking. When I got out of the interior design business, I made it my mission. I opened up the gallery, and as you said, I featured cultural artists, so it was not only African-American, but it was Mexican-American, it was LGBTQ art, and my mission was to spread love of art regardless what the subject is. So if you like that Charles Bibbs, you buy it and you put it in your house.
Which we did.
Oh, you guys bought two pieces. You guys absolutely did.
It's almost like a mission statement for you because, it's attainable by everyone. It's welcomed by everyone. You're not excluding anyone to the point that you yelled at me because I didn't share my portfolio with you.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had made this assumption that you only show artists that are cultural, and me being a white artist, didn't see myself as culturally more than just the blonde-haired guy that takes photographs.
But when I looked at your portfolio and what made me approach you is because as a white man, you took cultural pictures from your lens, so it had a different viewpoint and it had a different story to tell.
Well, and I would like to feel that when I'm doing things like that, because when I'm in San Jose, I live in Japantown, so I'm surrounded by the culture of Japanese individuals. I'm surrounded by the history of the internment camps and the people that were whisked away to those. And I have an appreciation of all of that and a respect. I hope I have a respect. And I'm always careful when I'm photographing street art or graffiti art or anything else that's not my culture. But it brings me to that moment that you and I had that conversation. You had an event one summer. You asked me to do a couple of things. I started playing, and you got all excited about a test I was doing.
Yes.
And it was that Diana Ross with the afro.
Yes.
And the big earrings.
Yes.
And I was nervous.
You were very nervous, and I'm glad that you set the nervousness aside to do that because that was such an iconic thing. It was a way of you appreciating Diana Ross and bringing something fresh to it because you came in with new ideas, whereas you had her afro diamond glittery, and you did the hoops glittery, something that I had not seen before. And I really didn't look at it as, I'm asking this white man to do Diana Ross. I looked at it as I'm asking my friend who is an artist who appreciates my culture to look at this through your eyes and give it something fresh. And you did that.
Well, and I appreciate the education I've received from you because I cherish our friendship. And I love everything I have learned of your culture, your history, your past that I'm now able to share through my art, through my classroom.
And that's where you are a cultural appreciator and not a appropriator.
Which is funny because I'm the first person that stands there and goes, yes, I appropriate. And I poke fun at things. And, I take our president and I make him look like a fool because that's my choice as an artist. But when I'm doing something that's in the culture realm, I avoid that.
See, my whole thing is that people need to learn the difference. And the difference is, say, for instance, the Kardashian family. Their claim to fame was appropriating Black women's aesthetic, claiming it as their own. That's what appropriation is. Appropriation is when you take something from another person's culture with the sole purpose for gaining clout and gaining money, and not giving back to that culture.
It's interesting you say that because I was going to bring that up. There are these individuals that are taking the culture, the patterns, the tribal prints, the hairstyles, all of these different things, and not recognizing where it came from.
Exactly. They want all of our rhythm and all of our rhyme without the pain.
It's that thing that still keeping people in boxes.
Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, when I do it, it's labeled ghetto. But when the Kardashians do it, it's edgy. It's a trend. And to me, I even want to repurpose the word ghetto because people have the connotation like this is a negative word when it's really not.
Well, and it gets to who's using that word. Because my husband's Jewish, and there were Jewish ghettos, and they would be segregated to those areas, just like blacks be segregated to their
and
right.
Weren't allowed to buy property. And
so, if I'm talking in a Jewish culture, ghetto has a different. It's that negative lockdown. But your culture, the Black community, embracing that idea of ghetto.
Some of the most beautiful things come out of some of the most tragic circumstances. I'm not speaking from experience because I was raised in a middle class, some say upper middle class, but that never stopped me from going places, learning things, and experiencing things. And some of the most beautiful things come out of some of the most raw talent, some of the most talented individuals, some of the most intelligent individuals. It's like Tupac had that book, The Rose That Grew from Concrete. Concrete is hard stone. You wouldn't think that a rose would grow out of that, but it did, and it does. And so that's why the word ghetto does not offend me.
That's the thing I appreciate is that you're ready to confront it. And I like that because I'm kind of confrontational too.
Yeah.
But you do it in such a passionate way. And I think a loving and caring way because I have never felt when we've had these uncomfortable conversations, I want to learn. And it's almost like I get this hug of acceptance. And through that, I learn even more because those negative connotations suddenly can have a better meaning for me.
I love the fact that you are so willing to learn. And I love the fact that you ask questions. Ask questions. Learn. That's what the world needs more of. And the one thing with you, though, is that you actually listen to what I'm saying. You don't hear it. You listen to it. And then you digest what I've said, and then you take that back and you share that with other people. And another thing I love about you is that me as a marginalized person, being an African American and a woman, you don't tell me how I should express my pain.
Oh, hell
or
no.
you don't tell me I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or I should be doing this. You just sit back and observe and you listen. And if you have questions, you ask that. And you internalize what I'm telling you.
Well, I think too, you and I, and some of our circle that we share, have had this conversation about allies. And me being in the LGBTQ community, we love our allies. We love those people that don't have one of those letters, but are standing right there with me.
Exactly.
And I feel you are one of those individuals. And when there's something that you or your community is up against, I would hope to be able to be that idea of the ally, standing there with you.
And you are. And to me, being an ally is very important. When I am an ally to the LGBTQIA community, I don't come in and say, this is what I'm going to do, because I don't know that struggle. I come in and say, how can I be of service? What do you need me to do?
Well, and that's the thing I have so enjoyed about you, your artwork, your practice of what it is that you do, designing. You're in the community. It doesn't matter which one.
Yeah.
Because all of us come together to make that community.
We really do, and it's a beautiful thing in our little friend circle.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I will say is I am guilty of is I am quick to check a homophobic mofo without asking, and I get brutal. And I won't apologize for that.
Well, but again, it gets back to that real ally. Let's get back to your designs for a little bit. You talked about the Kardashians and others like them that have taken things, but you're using your own history, your own background. Has there been times that that's been misinterpreted of what you're doing?
Yes. Or I wouldn't say misinterpreted. Sometimes you'll get people like, I'm really into the wearable art thing now, so I have these great bags. And
they're fabulous bags, people.
I'll put Dorothy Dandridge on a bag. And I've had white clients kind of steer away from buying that Dorothy Dandridge bag. And my thing is, well, why? Well, because she's African American. I said, okay, so if I had on a shirt with Bob Dylan on it, are you going to look at me sideways because I've got on a shirt with Bob Dylan? No, because he is iconic. The same thing goes for a person that is non-African American carrying a bag with a Barack Obama or a Michelle Obama or a Dorothy Dandridge or a Trina Parks. Any of these iconic black figures, they're for all of us to appreciate.
It's funny you brought up the bags and that someone was not put off, that's the wrong word, but they were
gun shy.
I like that. But I've got two different Donna Summers that you did.
Yes, you did.
That bag makes an entrance. Like it enters the room and gets sat down on the table and people stop. Because it is eye-catching.
Exactly.
And it's all of these things. And I have never once thought that it could possibly be. Why is he carrying that bag?
It's because, again, you're looking at it through a veil of ignorance. Not ignorance as far as it being art, but ignorant to the fact that it's black art. Because it's not black art. They try to pigeonhole African American artists into this category by calling it black art. It's not black art, it's art.
And I think that still goes back to my whole beef with the art institution as a whole, that they have to be able to hang a label on it.
Exactly.
Just like they want to hang a label on my artwork that it's LGBTQ.
But it's not.
It's campy, it's these things. Yes, I use it because that actually is my culture.
Yeah.
But I'm doing so much more than just that, and it's reaching more people when they're open to it.
Exactly, and that's what you have to be, open to it. Another thing that the difference is, a lot of people like wearing locks or cornrows or styles that are from my culture. The thing that I always say is like, well, people are like, oh, well, why does it offend you when you see a non-black person with locks? Well, because that is a hairstyle that I used to have locks. You as a business owner, if I came into your job and wanting a job with my locks, up until the Crown Act was initiated, you could solely not hire me because of my hairstyle. And what a lot of people don't realize or don't care to think about is that for centuries, we were forced to conform to these Europeanized standards of beauty to be accepted. Because the way our hair naturally grew out of our hair, nappy, coiled, afros, whatever you be, we had to find some way to straighten it, lighten it, whatever, to just be able to survive. And so when somebody such as myself, where I'm very into natural hairstyles, and then I see somebody that is non-African American or non-black walk by me with locks, do they understand the journey, that the fight, the struggle that people that look like me had to go through in order just to wake up, wear our hair the way it grows out of our head, and try to get jobs? So for you to take that hairstyle and make it about a fashion, that's appropriation. That's disrespect.
And that's where I feel your work, what you do, what you did with the gallery, what you're doing with your designs and the wearable art, is helping educate us as a bigger population that these pieces are important. This is amazing history, but you got to learn it.
You do. You have to learn it. You have to internalize it. You have to appreciate it, and then take what you've learned and spread that to other people that look like you that don't know.
Yeah, I'm fascinated how far we have come as a society, but not.
Yeah, every time we take 2 steps forward, we take 4 steps back. And with this orange clown that's in the office now, we have taken 250 steps back.
Well, it's like trying to erase history that's uncomfortable.
It really is. And to me, it's like I hate when I hear people say, oh, well, why do we have to learn about slavery? Because we weren't slaves. You weren't a slave. I didn't own any slaves. And I will never forget, I had this college debate course, and there was a girl that, and I don't want to call her an heiress, but she really was, because she came from generations of money. And so she did not understand the concept. And so I broke it down to her, and I said, okay, wait a minute. I said, where do you get your money from? Oh, well, I had a trust fund that came from my grandparents. I said, were your grandparents first generation millionaires? Oh, no, it came from their grandparents and passed down. I said, okay, so at some point, somebody in your family owned somebody that looked like me, got free labor off the people that look like me, and now because of that, you are at 21 a multimillionaire. I don't have that luxury. I said, so no, while I was not a slave, I said, but I'm a descendant from a slave. So after slaves were freed, we started communities on our own. We started Black Wall Street. We started these thriving neighborhoods where we did not depend on anybody else but ourselves. And what happened? Non-Black people came and burned those things to the ground. Banks that were holding on to black money kept that black money. Neighborhoods began redlined. So all of a sudden, I live in this neighborhood, or somebody that lives at me lives in this neighborhood where the house is automatically 80% less because it's in a red line district, which means those schools get less because the property taxes are less. It's a whole systemic thing that people don't understand. After that debate, the girl in the class was brought to tears. Every day at class, she would bring me Starbucks. She would bring me gift cards. And I'm like, that's not what I want. But she just felt so bad. And she then understood.
And our system has kept that sort of learning away from those that need to hear it.
Exactly. And you have this mentality like, well, I don't want my child to know about slavery because we never owned any slaves. So why should my child feel bad? Because it's a part of history.
Yeah.
Ruby Bridges is still alive. Ruby Bridges is only in her 70s.
Well, and it wasn't
she integrated
all that
a school
long ago.
Exactly.
It was not, we're not old enough to remember when she went to school.
No, I wasn't alive when she first went to school.
Right. I think it's wonderful when artists can bring their creativity to the level that you have.
Well, thank you.
That allows others to recognize the importance of a culture, that recognizes the importance of the history that is there, and do it again. It's like I said earlier, it's almost like you give us this hug of learning.
It really is. And it's not, I'm not trying to chastise, I'm trying to teach, because the more we know, the better we are as humans. And the day that we stop learning should be the day we die. You're never too old to learn.
Yes.
That was the idea behind my Black History events, too. And they started off tiny, and then I had people like Lee and Dr. Joshin from Contour Dermatology that just really believed in my mission. And so every year their checks got bigger and bigger, and they saw what I was doing. I was educating the community. And I went from Palm Springs Disposal Services. I had these core non-Black businesses that just really enjoyed what I was doing and really enjoyed that I was taking it as from a learning standpoint. Because every year I did a Black History event, you bought a ticket, you got these flashcards.
And I learned so much from those because I
Everybody
would go home
did.
at the end of the event, right? Because if I wasn't a guest, I was blessed to be able to be a part of one of the vendors that you included because it was about community.
It really is about community.
But then I got home and I'm looking at these flashcards and I'm learning about these names that I have heard or, references from history. And suddenly I have a better understanding and picture of how this all fits in.
Exactly. I mean, everybody from Marsha P. Johnson to James Baldwin to Dorothy Dandridge. I mean, all of these key Black figures that people had no idea about, I taught them about that.
Well, and you celebrate it in your artwork.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the creativity you're bringing to the table.
Exactly. And so for me, it's not about where people say, oh, I want you to feel bad. No, it's not. I don't want you to feel bad. I want you to learn. Because when you know, you won't repeat it. So no, it's not about trying to make your children feel bad because my people were slaves and people that look like you happen to own us. It's about history. You can't just erase it. One of the things I taught people about was the measuring rod. A lot of people didn't know about that book. And that book was taught up until the late 70s in the South. And basically it was just a Confederate daughter, the leader of the Confederate Daughters, wrote this manual how children were to be educated from pre all the way through college. And you got things like that people like that look like me don't have the mental capacity. So therefore, me being a slave was actually good for me because it taught me structure.
Well, it's about putting people into place. Know your position.
There is a better way. And it's when you find out all these things that Black people have contributed to society. If you had to go a day without a Black invention, you wouldn't have light bulbs. You wouldn't have security cameras. You wouldn't have a car. You wouldn't have so many different types of food. You wouldn't be able to have an oven. You wouldn't have a mattress. You wouldn't have ice cream. You wouldn't have chips. There's just so many things that people do not know, and that information is suppressed on purpose.
So with your work, the beautiful prints that you make, in fact, I just saw the latest post of the new African wax cloth ones that you're doing, which are beautiful. How much do you hope through your clientele base, which is huge, that education's a piece of it?
A lot. Because I always lead with the education. I always lead with the fact that I tend to buy fabrics from different regions throughout Africa, and I try to get women-owned factories first if I can. And if I can't, then I go to other sources. But I love for people to know that these textiles, these batiks, these Ankara, wherever region it may be, whatever it may be, that there's beauty in Africa that is not put out. It's like with the Met Gala. They just had the superfine tailoring.
Yes.
Black dandyism came along, and you saw these bright colors and these bright prints that are anything but subtle and quiet. So when they were walking into these arenas where they were supposed to not be seen or heard, they're doing both.
But it sort of turned that event into an appropriation event, didn't it?
Exactly. It did, because you had a lot of people that had no idea that were off trend.
Well, and it's interesting because for an event like that, there's such an opportunity because you're celebrating art and you're celebrating the museum, and it's supposed to be a fundraiser and all of these sorts of things. But it turns into spectacle.
And that's exactly what it was. It's like I was posting pictures of the people that I think just killed it. And there was a picture of Simone Biles.
Yes.
Simone Biles absolutely embodied Black dandyism. And there was a non-Black person that came into the comments and say, well, she looked ridiculous. And I was like, well, you don't understand Black dandyism then. Well, how do you know I don't understand it? Because if you did, you would realize that she was channeling Baby Esther. Do you know who Baby Esther is? They stole her image and likeness for Betty Boop. She was also channeling Josephine Baker. So for you to say that she looked ridiculous, that lets me know that you don't understand dandyism. You don't understand the Harlem Renaissance. You don't understand the idea. And even if it was Anna's idea, she should have turned it over to Dapper Dan and let Dapper Dan execute that the way he wanted to. Because Dapper Dan is, again, the personification of Black dandyism. Dapper Dan in the 80s was the one that dressed all the rappers. LL Cool J, Salt and Peppa, everybody. The only thing that closed him down is because he was borrowing people's trademark to make clothing. So where he Gucci, Louis Vuitton. And so when they wanted to reinvent themselves, what did they do? They went back to a Dapper Dan. Gucci was really guilty of it. They went back to a coat that he did, thought that we weren't going to recognize it, and relaunched it like maybe 5 years ago. They relaunched the same exact coat that they shut him down for making. And instead of going to get him, they just said, oh, well, we'll just take it. Well, they tried to take it, but then they ended up hiring him.
It's been interesting through all of the decades of fashion how different designers have gotten their hands dirty with doing those sorts of tricks, appropriating some piece of culture or stealing the idea. Mm-hmm. But, you brought it up here just a little bit that they get away with it. And it just goes back to people have been put into places and we have had a lack of education to understand.
Exactly.
Which is why I love getting to be in the realm that you are with what you're doing and what you're designing and what you've created, because I feel it has helped me become a better person and recognizing a culture that I haven't had enough exposure to.
Thank you. I mean, there's been a couple of times where I've done designs, and I don't want to say they copy me because I'm nobody, but it's like I put this coat out and it was different jungle themes. And then maybe 3 years later, that coat showed up in, I'm trying to think what designer it was. And I don't remember who pointed out to me, but they're like, Aneka, that's the same damn coat. And then like how I was taking Black images and reversing them. Or I was taking black and white images and reversing them and putting them on, I'd do them on my bags and stuff. And then I think Balmain had a collection where they were doing it. And I'm like, well, no, I mean, it can't be. I mean, because I'm this nobody, so it's just a coincidence. But then when you look at it, it's not a coincidence. Because I remember at one point I'm not on Twitter anymore, it was Twitter, that I found out Michael Kors was following me. And so it was like I took a screenshot and I tweeted it out. I said, I bet not see none of my designs in Michael Kors' collection. Because we know, here's proof, he's following me. So.
You just made a comment that you're a nobody. I want to correct that. You are somebody. You are somebody amazing.
Thank you.
That you have had the red carpet walks with your clothing. It has been noticed. It is out in a world that needs to see and understand better this culture. Yeah. And I appreciate back to that day that we sat there and had that heart-to-heart about appropriation and appreciation. Yeah. You recently, for actually quite a while now at this point, have been doing pop-ups for Macy's.
Yeah, it's been a year. It's called Meet and Shop the Designer. I go to the Macy's and I pop up and you get to meet and shop me. The ultimate goal is I would love to be in Macy's nationwide. So that's the ultimate goal behind this, is that I'm working toward being picked up as a vendor, Macy's nationwide.
Well, and you've been having pretty good reception with being in Macy's, haven't you?
Yes, I have. And again, it's with people that don't look like me. Just appreciating.
I love how people that don't look like me.
Shh, I got a secret. Come here.
But that's just it, right?
Yes, because what Macy's is doing right now is that they are closing a lot of the bigger stores, and they're coming up with these smaller formats, and they've got the designers in there. So you've got Gucci, Tom Ford, Michael Kors. So you've got all of these designer brands, and those are the stores that I'm going to in the smaller scales. So it's less of a huge experience, more of a curated experience. So you're getting all these high-end brands, and that's where they're sticking me at, in those types of Macy's.
But that seems to be a better fit for what it is that you do, because
It's
your
awesome,
clothing
yes.
verges on couture.
Yeah, and it's I've over the last few ones, I haven't so much done. I have two lines. Before I get started, I've got Aneka Brown designs, which are my original designs, and they're fabricated out of the African wax cloth. And I also introduced the fact that they're now reversible pieces. So I've got the reversible kimonos, the reversible caftans, shirts. So you're getting 2 for 1. And then my ABD is my more the ready to wear, which is what the wearable art bags are going into. And I've been finding the last couple of events, I've only been bringing the wearable art, and those have been really well received.
Well, and it's interesting too, because we have right now a moment in our economy where people don't have as much available cash to be picking up a designer piece, but
Yes.
your stuff is accessible.
It really is, because the whole idea is, and my motto is live every day of life like you're on a runway. And so with my Aneka Brown Designs line, I've got these pieces that you probably could be paying $1,800 for, but they're reversible. They're not something you see every day. They're just these phenomenal pieces that you put on, and you walk into a room and you're automatically the center of attention. When I'm saying kimonos, it's floor length.
I've got one and I love it.
Yes, you have the pants too.
Reversibles. Yes.
And I've been finding too that it's a lot easier in, I would say, November-ish is when I'll reintroduce the new pieces from the Aneka Brown line, and I'll have both, and it'll be a merging of the two.
So what's next for Aneka Brown?
I would love to, like I said, I'm manifesting. I would love to be in Macy's nationwide. I would love to be in Nordstrom's Macy's nationwide. I would love to be in Saks. And I would love to expand upon my celebrity clientele. I would love to dress Angela Bassett. I would love to dress Simone Biles. I would love to dress Sierra. There are just so many people that I admire for their fashion sense. I am absolutely enamored right now with Venus Williams. We are witnessing a star being born with her fashion. I would love to dress Venus Williams.
Well, let's see if we can't make that happen.
Let's make it happen. So just keep trucking. I'm just going to keep on trucking.
Aneka, thank you so much for spending time with me today. Loved being able to come into your shop and sit here with you and just be a part of it. Aneka has a shop that's up running right now, and it is in Palm Springs. She also is available online. I will make sure that all of this information's in the show notes so that anybody can get to you.
Thank you. And I have Macy's the last Saturday and Sunday of July. The LA Macy's, the Colonies Crossing. So you can look for me there too if you're in the vicinity or coming
We will
out.
make sure all of that's in there.
Yeah.
Aneka, thank you again.
Thank you for having me. It's been a wonderful experience.
Well, that's a wrap on my latte and this enlightening conversation with the incredible Aneka Brown. I hope you found today's discussion as inspiring and thought-provoking as I do. Remember, exploring the line between cultural appropriation and appreciation is an ongoing journey, one that's richer when we listen, learn, and celebrate each other's stories. Don't forget to check the show notes for all the opportunities to catch Aneka out in the community and at Macy's, where you can experience her work and support her mission to bring authentic cultural expression to the world of design. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, keep creating, keep questioning, and I hope to see you next time. I'm James William Moore, and this has been Lattes Art, presented by J Squared Atelier.